Hey everyone, I know it's been a while since I posted a video. I think the last time I posted was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Um, I really tried to post another video, but there was an actual legit reason why because that I couldn't post. Um, was because a very unfortunate event happened in my family. Um, my yeah, I'm basically just gonna make a quick update video about my current status and any questions that I always get. Um, as far as those who don't know about it, or who may want to know about what happened, um, I guess I'm making this video for those type of people who are still wondering what happened, who never really got a clear explanation, or just never really got the chance to ask me about it. Um, so basically, um, on August 4th, I left for a camp, which is like volunteering. I spent around 5 days volunteering at this camp, um, and I signed up from August 4th to August 9th, um, and I'd be staying there for those days. But on that day that I arrived, August 4th, it was around 3 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon. Um, I got multiple phone calls, but I didn't pick up because we weren't allowed to use our phones. Like, we had to pay attention at that camp. Like, we can't just take it out. I mean, you can, but they wouldn't be happy about it. But finally, I took out my phone and I asked another staff who worked there to watch after one of my campers. Um, and I picked up the call, and then it was my mom. She sounded very worried. Um, and I immediately knew something was wrong because she would not be calling me at this hour. Um, like, it was just very out of the ordinary, and I was like very worried as well because I knew something was wrong. Um, and then my mom just straightforwardly told me that my dad was in the ICU in critical condition. Um, and yeah, I was very shocked at that moment. I did not know how to react. I was honestly thinking it was just a dream and this was all a joke, but it really wasn't like a dream or a joke. Uh, so, okay, I'm gonna try to make this video quicker. But basically, at that point, my mom told me that my dad fell and hit his head on the floor really hard. Um, don't really know how. We're assuming that he like passed out and just couldn't, because right before you pass out, you can't really control like how you fall. Um, but we're assuming that's what happened because he was very healthy before. He's gone for multiple medical checkups. Nothing was wrong, and it could have just been that day. It was just very unlucky. But anyways, he fell on the floor, hit his head, and at that point, his skull was already cracked, and he was bleeding out on one side of his ears, and it was just not good. Like, my mom was home alone at this hour. My brother was all the way in a different city, which is in Houston, still in Texas, but um, not the most ideal place to be at that moment. But he managed to make it back later on in the hospital. But my mom was telling me that he was bleeding out. He's in the ICU right now, and he at the time he was in the middle of a surgery, so we didn't really know what was gonna happen, and I was just hoping for the best. And so at that point, when I picked up, it was already 3 o'clock, and at 3 o'clock he was in the surgery. And actually, one of my friend's moms was on her way to pick me up from the camp because my mom couldn't. She was at the hospital and she was not in the right emotional state to like come pick me up. I was all the way in San Antonio. But anyways, the whole situation was just really bad. We were basically all apart as a family at that point. So my brother drove around 2.5 hours back to the Austin area. I also had to drive like around 2.5 hours back to the Austin area. And at that point, my brother was actually already there before I was. So I'm assuming they didn't want me to worry in the car, so they didn't tell me anything. So when I got to the hospital, my brother seemed very anxious, and you could just tell something was wrong. But I got out of the car and I heard the words that I did not want to hear, which is, I don't think Dad is going to make it. And that just really hit me really hard. Like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was very healthy, and just that morning, everything was fine. Like, nothing was off. He was perfectly healthy. Like, everything just seemed normal, and it just didn't match up. Like, even now, it doesn't match up. But anyways, so I quickly rushed up to the ICU room, which he was in. And I went in and I saw my dad. He was unconscious, basically in a coma. And I just couldn't believe my eyes. I saw him laying there. One of his eyes was already swollen. I just didn't want to see him in that kind of condition. I don't think anybody would want to see their dad or loved one in that condition. But physically, he was not looking well. His head was still bleeding. The surgery did not go well because there was just too much bleeding. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't stop it. And the hospital was kind of far away from my house as well. So a lot of these factors just wasn't working out that day. The hospital was far away. It takes a couple minutes for emergency services to arrive at my house. And it's just not enough time, especially when it's a critical head injury. Your brain cells actually die like within seconds. But yeah, at that point, I was just trying to understand what happened because my mom did not explain everything over the phone. I was just trying to understand what exactly happened, how did it happen, and I just had a ton of questions in my mind I wanted to ask, and I honestly was very angry at that moment and very emotional. Not emotional at first, but after I understood the situation, I started getting a bit emotional. But yeah, the first night we as a family stayed there, and we stayed there for, well, I guess for the first night, we just pulled an all-nighter in the hospital room. But we had a lot of support from family and friends that were close to us, so that was really nice. And that honestly helped us a lot as far as like emotional support and like what we're gonna do in the future, etc. But they're very supportive and we're very grateful for that. And if you're one of those individuals, I want to thank you again for reaching out to us and helping us in any way that you guys possibly could. But we pulled an all-nighter that day. The nurse practitioner kept doing constant checkups every hour or so to see if my dad was responsive to like reflexes, because at that point we were trying to see if his brain was functioning normally. At first it was okay, like he coughed like a little bit, He did not have a gag reflex though. And they also did this thing where they put a pen against your nail to test like the pain sensors in your brain. If they were working, but in a very negative way. The nurse practitioner told us that at that point, since the skull was cracked, they removed the bone. The brain was actually being inflamed and starting to come out of the skull. So even though he was like drawing back from the pain, it was not the positive sign of like drawing back from pain. For example, when they put the pen against his toenail and they pressed hard, because usually that hurts. Usually your foot like scrunches up this way, but it was going the other way, which was a negative sign. And at that point, I was just trying to accept the fact that this is how things are going to end. And I just honestly was hoping for a miracle at that point. But fast forward to the next day, doctors came in, they told us the situation. He also went for a CT scan, and they told us that his brain was bleeding like a lot, and his survival rate was basically bare 0% at that point. He was relying on life support and medication to keep his heart rate, his blood pressure up, and it was just like one of those movie scenes that you don't really want to see in real life. But the doctors basically told us that we probably have to make a decision pretty soon as far as like if we want to keep holding him hostage with the life support on, because at that point, even if he recovered, even if a miracle happened and he recovered, he wouldn't be the same person that he was. He'd basically just be like a vegetable lying on a bed and can't do anything, and I don't think my dad would want that. So on August 6th, we decided to finally take the life support off. And we were all in the room. A lot of friends and his coworkers were there to visit him before we decided to pull the life support off. So everybody said their goodbyes before we decided to take it off. And there were a couple people who were in the room with us when we decided to let him go. And that was probably the hardest part. I just couldn't believe it was actually happening. I had to say goodbye to my dad at such an early age. I was honestly really hoping that he'd at least see me graduate high school, and I'd be happy with that. But things just didn't work out that way, and so that's just how things played out in the end. And at that point, I was preparing myself to be emotionally ready for letting him go. And at the time I was trying to stay strong as possible. And honestly, I think I was handling it pretty well at that point. Because I didn't want to leave my dad thinking that we'd all be worried if he left. So we kind of just got in the mindset of letting him rest without any like regrets. And throughout that time, a lot of his coworkers came and told us great stories about him and how he was a great man and how he always had a smile on his face, never said any negative things at work. And I'm sure it's all true, but it's just those values is what makes it hard, because we knew that he was such a great dad and such a great coworker and friend to a lot of people, and we just couldn't believe that he passed away at such an early age. But yeah, so as soon as we let him go, we stayed there for a little while, and then a couple of family friends stayed after to just stay with him for a little longer. But I wanted to go home or I guess I didn't really want to go home, but I just didn't want to be in that area anymore. Like, I just had enough of staying in the hospital and just being there with my dad with his last moments. So I went home, but I was really worried and was kind of anxious of going home because the scene that actually happened was actually in my house, and there was still like blood stains there, and I that specific location that where it happened still kind of brings flashbacks of what I imagined happened when I was gone. So honestly, it's a little bit hard as of now to get over. But the first night I stayed at my close friend's house overnight because I just couldn't stay in the house that night. Like, just too many thoughts in my head. But thankfully, my close friend let me stay at his house, and we just spent time together and just tried to move on, and they were very supportive. So, and all the two of my close friends, they also came from the camp. They also came back early because I just kind of wanted someone there to talk to. But anyways, a lot of my close friends came to make sure I was fine. And honestly, the amount of support that I got, I'm just really grateful. Because without it, I don't know what kind of condition I'd be in right now. But once again, I'm very grateful for all the support. And I know this video is kind of long, but I'm just trying to give as many details as possible so that if anybody was to ask me, I don't need to tell like a whole storybook worth of words. But that's basically what went down in the hospital. And we had a funeral a couple weeks later, and a lot of people attended it. I was so surprised. It was around 450 people who attended the funeral, and even the mayor of Austin came, and a lot of important people in the Austin area came, and I was very surprised that they all came because that meant my dad had an impact on them. And it was just very eye-opening for me at the same time, but it's kind of sad at the same time that he was no longer there, knowing that he had so many great achievements and his life was really short. But yeah, anyways, at the funeral, both my brother and I tried to stay strong. We tried to stay strong for my mom. My mom was probably the most emotional at this time, simply because she basically lost her life's partner, and her level of like, as far as like her emotions, is completely on a different level, because that was her husband and my dad was just my dad. But in similar ways, we both lost something that day. But as I was saying, at the funeral, a lot of people attended, and a very nice lady that knew my dad planned out the funeral and made things a whole lot easier. And also, they organized a scholarship fund for when I do eventually go off to college, because my dad was the only one working in the family, and we were, I guess, well off at that moment. Like, my mom didn't really have to work, but so people decided to set up a scholarship fund, which reached around 80K, and that's quite a lot of money, and that can basically last my whole college career, college time, or time in college, I mean. But I'm very grateful for all the amount of donations and the support that you guys gave. through the GoFundMe page, where we raised $50,000, but some people gave checks, and if you add that together, it equates to around $80K. But yeah, we just got a ton of support, and at the funeral we heard some speeches from his colleagues, his boss, the mayor, and both my brother and I went up for a speech. We just talked about how my dad was as a dad, rather than a close friend, a colleague. And we just gave the people who attended a different view of who my dad was. And I think my dad would be proud that both my brother and I went up there to speak about him, for him. But overall, funeral was a success. We had like technical difficulties in the beginning, but everything was a success, and I saw some of my friends there, and they're very supportive, and yeah, it was just a very nice funeral. I couldn't ask for more. But that's basically the general story of what happened, and as of now, I'm trying to do my best, emotionally and mentally, basically. I'm doing a little bit better now, but it's definitely taking some time to get used to, especially when it's so sudden. But if you guys see me around at school or anything like that, see me in the hallways, you can always say hi. Like, I won't mind or anything like that. But yeah, if you guys want to talk to me, just feel free to talk to me. Like, I won't be in like such a sad mood or something like that, but I'm always open. So just always talk to me if you guys want to. Don't feel like because of this loss, like I'm probably not fit for being talking to people right now. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or anything that you guys want to know, just let me know. Like, I'm opening to like answering any questions. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know. But I just want to make this quick video. Okay, this is not a quick video, this is a long video, but I wanted to make this video for those of you who didn't know, as I stated in the beginning. Yeah, I just want to thank all you guys for watching the video, and I want to thank everyone who supported me, either through like donating money or just even attending the funeral or just reaching out to me, either by social media or in person. I just really appreciate all the support, and I really mean it. Like, I'm not just saying it just because, but it's really what like drives me forward, and continue in life. So I just really want to thank everyone for the amount of support you've shown. But anyways, I'm going to start making more videos in the future, since it helps me distract myself sometimes and acts as a creative outlet for me. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. I'll try to keep doing weekly uploads. But yeah, just let me know if you guys have any more comments, questions, leave it down below, or just if you see me somewhere, just go ahead and ask me. Like, as I said before, I'm open. But yeah, I'll be expecting a few videos coming soon, and yeah, that's basically it. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.